All right, as you hear, I've just pressed the red button and we're going to record this awesome session. All right, good to go. It's a couple minutes till start time, and I think I'll just kind of start things off. Everybody kind of knows the drill by now. Welcome to our weekly webinar series, and I'm really excited today because BrightSign, somebody that we've at Volutone anyway, have been working with for quite some time. All of our locations, all the Pro One Pro stores have digital signage. We rely on it every day. I love having this discussion. As in the marketing department, I create a lot of content that can be quite effective, but even if that's a hurdle for anybody here, it's definitely something that we want to introduce you to, that side of things, not just the content, but how BrightSign really works and operates, and how you can integrate it into your daily offerings, because it's super important. So anyway, I'm Gary with the Volutone crew out here in LA, and I represent all of the Snap AV locals. The Snap One partner stores is actually what it's going to be called. And so you see our new logo right there. We've got some celebrations going on starting tomorrow. All of the Snap One partner stores are having barbecues and celebrations and giving out swag. So you know what? Tomorrow, go ahead and hit one of our stores and get some free lunch and come in and talk to us. So we're here for you. And coming up to a holiday weekend, Misty and John, hope you guys are going to have some fun this weekend. Misty, I think Misty's throwing a party on Saturday.
A big old party with two bands.
She does it right. And, I'll be joining you in Los Angeles doing my own, rocking some free world, classic rock and roll here in LA. So yeah, it's kind of back on. A lot of fun too. Anyway, enough with all that. I've got two great guests, Misty Chalk and John Arnio, correct, yeah. Welcome, you guys. This is a weekly discussion that we have. I like to keep it very informal, but interactive as we can. We'll definitely get hit with questions on, no matter what confidence level any of our dealers that are listening today and watching today are. I want them to interject their opinions and ask their questions, and let's help them through. Certainly a great discussion to have. I'm recording this, and I will get Misty's deck out to everybody on Friday morning with our weekly follow-up. So let's get to work. Let's dive into this. It's been quite successful for the Pro One stores as far as delivering messages. Can't thank you enough for coming in and sharing your intelligence with us. And we're excited to go down this path with you guys. I'll turn it over to Misty. Misty, there you go.
All right. Thank you, Gary. That was great. So my name is Misty Chalk, and I am the U.S. Director of Sales as well as Federal. I also manage our Federal vertical. And I live in Virginia Beach, Virginia. And on the call with me today, I also have John Arnio, who is a solutions architect for BrightSign. And so he'll be doing part of this. Our plan is to kind of split this up and go through the overview of BrightSign. And what we plan on talking about is kind of the history of BrightSign, where we started, because it really does kind of lend that weight and credibility to who we are and why you would do business with us. We'll talk about the platform at a pretty high level of both our hardware and our software. And then I'm going to actually turn it over to John, and he's going to show you some examples of some content that we felt was relevant to you and to your applications, and then also show you a live demo of our software. So that's kind of what we have in store for you for this hour. So let's just get started. By talking about, like I said, what the foundation of who we are and where BrightSign is positioned in this marketplace. So for those of you that don't know, BrightSign was founded in 2006, and we were actually formed as the commercial division of Roku. And we introduced the very first digital media player to the marketplace. And by 2009, we spun off from Roku and we became an independent company. And, since then, we've really continued to stay on the cutting edge of innovation and just lead the market by introducing the first 4K media player, among a lot of other things. And by 2013, BrightSign had taken the lead and become the digital signage global leader. So what does a global leader look like in the digital signage world? And so this is kind of BrightSign by the numbers. So we've actually shipped 1.9 million players now since 2009. Our average daily shipment is about 1,100 units. We're installed in over 130 countries and counting. We have over 570 resellers worldwide with over 100 content management partners that work on our hardware, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit. We also are going to talk about our partner ecosystem, which we have over 170 partners that work in our partner ecosystem of BrightSign. Our failure rate is extremely low, and our return rate is also extremely low, which is two things we're going to talk about here in a little bit. But these are some of the things and the reasons why BrightSign has become that global leader in digital signage. So you heard me talk about the BrightSign ecosystem. So the BrightSign ecosystem is probably really the reason that we are the global leader and how we got to where we are. So we're very a horizontal platform across virtually every vertical. And since all of these verticals require different types of content, experiences, partners, in order for us to really be successful in all of these different marketplaces, we have an understanding that signage is not only a one-size-fits-all approach. It really does take a lot of parts and pieces to make it all work. And since all of the customers' requirements and ideas are different, it requires us to have an agile, flexible platform with a lot of different partners. So we have a very unique market strategy that centers ourselves right in the middle of that digital signage universe. And we partner with not only software partners, but partners for really every aspect of the solution. So software, furniture, ad agencies, content creation, displays, and this list is always growing as we continue to add partners to our ecosystem every single day. So this ecosystem is also one of the reasons why we have 1.9 million players shipped to some of the largest brands across the world, as you see in some of those icons on the backdrop there. We love putting this slide in, marketing likes us to do that. And then let's actually switch over to kind of the meat of the presentation, which is going to be, what is the advantages of using BrightSign, right? So at our core, BrightSign really is a hardware manufacturer. And at quick glance, these are some of the things that just make our hardware unique. So these are the reasons why installers and resellers like yourselves have standardized on our platform. And one of those reasons is because the players are purpose-built for digital signage. They are not a PC. They're reliable, they're scalable, they're affordable, and they're easy to use. They're also solid state and they have no moving parts, which is why our failure rate is extremely low at that 0.1%. They are meant to be run 24/7 with no downtime, and they're not meant to be human interacted with once they're deployed. So everything, once you deploy these players, are managed over the network. Our aluminum enclosure is actually patented by BrightSign, and it's available on every player except for our lowest model, the LS. And it allows the players to operate in very harsh environments. So they can withstand temperatures from -4 to 158 degrees Fahrenheit. And since there are no moving parts, like fans, they use their chassis as a heat sink. So it has a very low operating expense. And our commercial grade operating system is a dedicated operating system built specifically to run digital signage. It's proprietary to BrightSign, and at its very core, it's built on a Linux stack. And because we are not a workstation, there are no updates, there's no patches, no blue screens, you're not going to get any viruses. Our OS is also built with an open architecture and open APIs. And what that means is that it allows partners to run their software on our hardware. And again, we're going to talk about that a little bit in a minute. We also offer regular updates of our BrightSign OS at no additional cost. And these updates are optional and only need to be applied if necessary, and you're available on our website. So that takes us into the product family. So this is what the product family looks like for BrightSign. So at our very entry level, we have the LS player, then we move up to the HD, onto the XD, and then the XT. So each one of these product lines from the LS all the way up to the XT, they offer increasing levels of video and HTML performance and features, so you can choose the player to match your application. So as you move up the line, we continue to add features, and each of these models are only about $100 away from each other. So it's really easy to kind of move up and down the line as your needs for your clients. Because all of our players have different capabilities, as you can see, as you kind of move up the line, you start getting additional feature sets that are added into those players. But at the very, very minimum, you get everything that's included in that LS, and then we just continue to add features onto it. So for instance, that minimum feature set would include things like full HD video. So the LS 424 series is 1080. Everything else is going to be 4K, but at the very, very minimum, you're at least going to get that full HD video. And then you're also going to get H.265 streaming, and in some models, H.264 as well. And you're also going to get automation and triggering of content, ways to do mass provisioning, which we call B-deploy. And then we also have content triggered by GPS coordinates, video walls, and all sorts of things. The list kind of really does go on and on. And since all of our players are managed the same way, they can be mixed and matched in an application. So you can put players where you need it based on what type of content they're going to be deploying at any given time. But again, because our players are so inexpensive and they're relatively it's not very expensive to kind of move up that line. And because our players are solid state with no moving parts and they're not going to break, it's really, really important to think about when you talk to a customer what they're doing now versus what they're going to do in the future, and sell them a player for the future, because the player will last. They will absolutely outlast their creativity right now. I can promise you that. So it's really important to understand what they may want to do. So right now, if they're only doing 1080, but they may want to go to 4K in the future, we need to sell them a 4K player. If right now they're only doing a single video, but they may want to do dual 4K videos in the future, again, choosing a player that's going to accommodate them is super important, because they will last a really, really long time. The XT family, which you see at the top, the XT1144 is actually our flagship player. It's our most capable player. It runs our enterprise HTML. It also is the only player lineup that has PoE. That one also has
Misty, did we lose you? John, are you online with me?
We might have lost her. Yeah, I am still here.
You got the image. You could just pick it right up like a handoff.
Yeah, we'll just pick it right up. That's the beauty of being in different locations, I guess. So like she was saying, the XT product has the PoE built in. So that was kind of the end of the product tier, rollout. And so that kind of covers everything from a hardware standpoint. So the next aspect of this is to talk about the software, because we're talking about ecosystem. This is the other important piece of this, is how the software itself works with it, because these aren't just simply hardware devices and that's it. There is an entire software platform that runs behind these. And what we're going to talk about today, in this demo coming up in detail, is what we refer to as our BSN.cloud solution. And it's helpful to kind of break down what that means, because what we're talking about are two different categories of control and content for the players. The control cloud aspect is how you can manage your players, provision your players, check the health and status, go through and actually reboot the players, snapshotting, that sort of thing. And then the content cloud is very interesting, because that's our version of a CMS, a content management system. And as Misty was talking about, because we are very partner oriented, our content management system, Content Cloud, is just one of many choices that you can make when it comes to actually getting content onto your players. And we partner with dozens and dozens of content management partners that are fully integrated into our ecosystem, and so much so that they're actually available as drop downs right in our software. So when you're using our Bright Author connected software platform, basically a player can be provisioned and linked directly into a content partner, just as part of its setup. And it's an incredibly seamless process. Let me see, is Misty back? No?
I don't know. Am I back?
You're back.
I mean,
I didn't know I was gone. I still heard you.
It kind of
Yeah, we lost you there.
and then John, seamless transition. So we are rocking and rolling, straightforward.
John and I work a lot together, so I'm glad that he was able to kind of pick that up.
Yeah.
And welcome, Rashawn. Welcome on board, and he's also a panelist from Snap One. And guys, we can continue. We got one question right there. I think he was talking about the useful life. I think with lifespan right there, Chase. When you were talking in terms of outlasting things, but maybe that was the specifics for his questions. Maybe address that, and then we'll move on.
Okay, let me back up to hardware then, Misty.
Okay.
It looked like that was a hardware question. Useful life.
So again, these players will last as long as you want them to. I mean, we have players, our Series 0 and Series 1 and Series 2 are still out there working in the world today, and they've been out there since 2006. So it depends on, obviously, the SD card that you choose. That's going to determine the life of your content. So that's why we always want you to choose the SD cards that we sell, just because we make sure that they are going to be able to be read and write to over 1 million times, and guarantee the life in the player for 5 years. So things like that will determine the life of the player, but the hardware itself will last a really long time. I mean, it's hard to say. They're still out there. They're still working.
Yep. All right, so I gave the BSN.cloud overview. Do we want to move on to content and start showing off some cool stuff?
Yeah, so I don't know if I missed part of that, but did you kind of go through the Control Cloud being the free version of remote diagnostics and Bright Author Connected, difference between that and content?
I did, but I didn't.
Okay.
I neglected to mention Control Cloud is free. That is a very good point.
Yeah, so Control Cloud, so the way that this new platform is structured is it's all underneath the platform name of BSN.cloud. And underneath BSN.cloud, we have different components. So Control Cloud is uh, basically embedded into the operating system of the player. So it comes free with every player. And this is new to BrightSign, something we just launched last year, where we're giving you free control of the hardware. So basically what that is it's for setup and it's for remote diagnostics and health of the player. So you can log into the device from anywhere or into the Control Cloud from anywhere, and you can see what's happening with your players. You can see what's playing on your players. You can actually remotely update the setup files of your players, that kind of stuff. It's not about content. It's all about just management of the hardware. And then on Bright Author Connected, that is our free version of content that you can download onto your PC or use a browser. But with Bright Author Connected, all of your players, those are for small deployments because all of your players have to be on the same subnet as the PC or Mac hosting the software. And then we have our Content Cloud, which is going to be the only thing that we charge a subscription for. And Content Cloud is a way that all your content is then stored in the cloud. All the players have a network connection all over the world, and you can update content from anywhere. And then, of course, the CMS partners, our CMS partners they do the same thing as Content Cloud. So you have a choice between using Content Cloud with us or choosing a CMS partner to do your content side. And even if you choose a CMS partner, you still get Control Cloud because it works in parallel. So you can run Control Cloud for remote management of the hardware, and you can still choose a partner to run the software for content. So it's a really, really cool feature. And now I'll turn it over to John, back to John, to do the content.
Awesome.
Yes.
My favorite part. I'm a content guy, so I love talking about this kind of stuff. So we've got a couple of example projects out in the wild that we thought were really good examples of things you can do with our players, things that we thought that would be relevant, and just things that are just interesting. They're just exciting projects that involve our players. This one in particular is a video wall. That's a very common request, and it's kind of amusing to me as a content person because the the project here, the easiest part of this project was using our players and getting our players to actually, perform this magic that you see here. I imagine that the installation of the projectors and the alignment and then the creation of the content itself was probably the biggest nightmare of this project. And really what you're looking at are three 4K projectors that are each projecting a 4K video. It's an entire canvas that's three 4K videos wide, that's been cut up. These projectors have been installed, aligned, and it's projecting on a 30 or 40-foot wide wall. And believe it or not, this is somebody's house. I think one of our other salespeople called this the Iron Man house because that's kind of what it looks like. But in the end here, we've got three BrightSign players that are driving this content, and with really just a simple configuration in Bright Author Connected, these are linked and they are aligned to each other using frame accurate synchronization, with a couple of checkboxes and some options in our software that plays this content seamlessly. So really that portion of the implementation was very simple, and what you get is just this amazing project that comes together here. So it's really impressive, and it's really slick when you can put this together, and it works so seamlessly. So again, this is one project example that I thought was really interesting to show. So the next one that I've got for you is a little bit of a live demo that involves control systems. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over here and I'm going to show our software. And what I've got is a live demo. We've got an XD 1034 that is running its output directly here. I've got our application BrightAuthor Connected, which we'll go into a little bit more detail here with a demo. But what I have here is a demonstration using a control system along with our BrightSign players. And this is another common scenario that you might find yourself in, where you are, instead of using our players on a touch screen and driving your interaction, your content that way, you might be using a Crestron or an Extron or a Kramer control. Um, to actually drive your entire project, including our players. And our players work seamlessly in that kind of an environment. And so what I've done here is I've put together a little bit of a demonstration that shows how you can do that. So what I've got here is a presentation in my BrightAuthor Connected. It's called UDP Control Demo. And as you can tell by the name, UDP is the key word here. We're using UDP messaging to drive communication from a Kramer control configuration to a BrightSign player. So when we look here, I've got my Kramer controller on the left. So what I've built out is, if you're familiar at all with Kramer control, you know that you can actually make use of a web interface once you've actually built those pages of control content. You can build this web interface. And what I've done here is I've linked this Kramer control project to my BrightSign player on the right. And I've got a couple example here of button presses that you can initiate on a Kramer control and show this communication to a BrightSign player. And this is more of a technical demo, but it's really meant to sort of give you some ideas of what's possible, and kind of spur some creativity here. So a couple examples. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hit this first button. I'm going to send a single UDP message from a Kramer to a player. And bottom portion of the screen here, you can see we've got the incoming message, hello world. So my single command button was configured just to simply send the words hello world. So you can see that that message came through the BrightSign player, and that's pretty straightforward. But what's really exciting is, instead of sending just single string messages, you can actually send variables, key value pair variables, to a BrightSign player, which gives you a lot of flexibility in how you configure these projects. So in this next example, I'm going to send a key value pair, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So here at the bottom, again, you can see the message. What we've done is we've sent a message of var1 separated by a colon, and then this string hello var1. And what's happened is, in the project, it's figured out that that belongs to my value, or my variable var1. So it's a really interesting way to actually parse these messages through. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit reset on this, and I'm going to send another message. So let's send multiple key value pairs. And then, instead of just parsing those, let's use it to drive content. So again, you can see what we've done here is I've sent this huge string of data in this UDP message, and I've parsed it out in my presentation. And not only have I assigned multiple variables at once, but I've used that to actually drive content and play a video. So it's a very, very powerful way to do this. And this is something that is, it's not proprietary to any of these control systems. So what we do with the Kramer control here, you can do with the Extron, the Crestron. It all works the same. And it's based on this just universal compatibility of UDP messaging, and the fact that built into our software, we can parse those messages and actually drive the receipt of those messages to create these events in our presentations. So that's a big thing that you'll hear with our presentation, is that everything is event driven, and UDP messaging is just one example of event driven content.
Hey, John, can I just add one note on here? So the great thing about UDP is it doesn't require a different type of player. So any of our players are capable of it. unlike like RS-232. If you wanted to do an RS-232 control, you would need to choose a player that had RS-232 control on it. And as far as Control 4, we did have a question about Control 4 and compatibility. And so obviously you can use this with any control system via UDP, but Control 4 has a drop down of vendors, and that's what's something that we're working very hard on right now, getting BrightSign into that so that we'll have the drivers and whatnot for those Control 4 applications. So, but again, UDP is just a nice universal way to do the control for any control system.
Yep, absolutely. And on that note, I am actively working with Kramer at the moment on their control system to integrate the BrightSign players. They do have kind of a generic driver configuration where you can just simply add a device, point it to its IP, and as long as you got the IP and the ports, everything is pretty seamless. But they do have some specific ways to streamline the integration of a BrightSign player, um, with your presentation and with your variables in this way. So I'm working with them, and I'm going to be working with Extron, Crestron, Control 4, all of these vendors to try to do the exact same thing, just to make the process a little bit easier to get into.
So, John, there's just a couple of questions that's relative to this, so I'm going to go ahead and answer them now. So the first one was about, do BrightSign devices have the ability to control screens like power on and off? The answer is yes, you can do that through a BrightSign device. And can BrightSign devices tell the status of a screen, such as if the screen is on or off and if the screen is in the correct input? So that answer is a little bit different, just because it depends on the screen that we're trying to get the information from. So if that screen is giving those commands via like EDIT or CEC, then yes, we can actually see that. In Control Cloud right now, we're working on something called Management Cloud, and Management Cloud is a monitoring system. So it will actually alert you to certain things like that, like certain things if your players are off the network, and again, if those commands are available via EDIT or CEC, then we could even build that into where the monitoring would say that your power is off on your display and those types of things. So yeah, the answer is yes, you can control your screens, you can control volume of your screens, you can control the input of your screens, and you can control whether or not those screens are powered on or off. But as far as it depends on the screen that you're using as far as the EDIT and the CEC and what they give you off of that. And then the second question we had was webinar or links for training for text of setup and deployment. So yes, we're actually going to show you a Control Cloud demo of how that works today, but we do have a learning management system that we are launching called BrightSign Academy, and BrightSign Academy is free, and you can go in and you can do the self-guided modules that will take you through how to do setup of the players, how to do device provisioning, all that stuff through Control Cloud, and then into BrightAuthor Connected and Content Cloud, and how to set up content and all of that. So that is available. And we do have a lot of videos and links on our website that will also walk you through all of those as well. Okay, now you can move on, John.
All right, cool. So we have a couple more content examples. And this one in particular is one of our retail display examples, but it really shows another scenario where the bright signs can be used as a controller, as a brain, really, to integrate a number of different devices together into an experience. So what we have here on this display table is a touch controller, which is a BrightSign built-in. This is a Bluefin screen. So this is running a one of our SoC BrightSign chips on that display. And it's communicating via UDP with another BrightSign player, an XT1144 in this case. And we're tying together all of these devices, this hue, we've got a sound system, we've got headphones, we've got a screen. And through a combination of UDP messaging and GPIO port interactions, then we are creating this whole interactive experience that ties all of these systems seamlessly together. And this is just a great example of some of the things that you can do when you put all of these pieces together, because these devices are really meant for this kind of interaction.
John, can I interject for 1 second again? I'm sorry.
Yep.
But this is probably one of the most popular kiosks that we show at any trade show that we go to, whether that's CEDIA or Infocom or whatever it is. It's one of the most popular because it really does show the entire gamut of what we can do with these players. And honestly, it's just a snapshot of what we can do. But what's awesome about this is that you are using a BrightSign built in to control all the other BrightSign units, and that could be lighting, that could be audio, that could be anything, not just a traditional signage video, but anything that's connected into this XT1144. We're then using our other BrightSign unit as an actual control unit, so you wouldn't need any kind of external control in this configuration. So it's a really popular thing. And if you've ever walked into any of electronic stores and seen like those Bose kiosks where you pick up the headphones and you touch the screen and things change, the lights come on, and then you play the audio that you want to play, all of those are 100% controlled by BrightSign units, and they're actually configured using BrightAuthor software, using free version of BrightAuthor software in our enterprise. So it's just a really, really cool case study for us, and shows kind of all the different things that we can do with these players. And John, we have one more question about those variables before we move on. So the question was the variables you would be able to send connection info for different RTSP camera strings.
I believe you could, yeah. I guess it depends on the implementation for an RTSP camera. There's a number of ways that you can get that to work on a player. You may not be restricted to just using it as a BrightAuthor connected, specific widget. That could be an HTML component, which is something we can certainly address here. But there's a number of different ways to get RTSP streams. One of the more common ways I think would be actually as an HTML component. But there are a lot of things you can do with variables, and that's probably one of them you can do. So we've got one more content example here, moving on. And this is, again, just to kind of highlight this event-driven logic. So this is an example of just a touch interaction. So this is a kiosk displaying, different product categories or different, variations of a product. And this is all driven by touch interaction, clicking on buttons on a touch screen and then changing that content. And it's an incredibly powerful thing that you can do in BrightAuthor Connected. Just simply dropping in assets, dropping in these different widgets, which we can show you here, linking events off of those, and really driving this process or this flow of this experience through this presentation. All right, so those are the four content pieces that I've got. So before we move on to the demo, any other questions we want to address, or should we jump into that part?
I don't see any other questions right now, so I think we can go ahead and do the content demo, and then I'll finish with Control Cloud.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to switch over to BrightAuthor Connected. We're actually going to do a live demo here with Control Cloud, and there we go. Let me make sure this is sized correctly. I just want to make sure everybody can see this legibly. All right, here we go. So we've got BrightAuthor Connected open, and I'm using the browser version of BrightAuthor Connected. So, one of the things to mention right off the top before Misty jumps into the demo is you can run this on a Mac or a PC. You can run it as a desktop application or in the browser. So I'm going to be running it in the Chrome browser for this demo. Did we lose Misty?
No, I'm here. I thought you were going to do a content demo.
Oh, no, we're going to do the Control Cloud.
Okay. All right. So sorry about that. I thought you were doing Content Cloud. So with Control Cloud, like I mentioned, it's a way for you to do the remote management and the setup of your device. So there's a couple of different ways that you can do it. There's the simplistic way in which you can just, all you have to do is plug a device into a network, put a blank SD card into it, plug it into power. And then when the device comes up, it'll go through a couple of boot cycles and it will come up with an activation screen because the player will automatically default to DHCP. So it will go out and it will look onto our network. It doesn't see itself. It will come to this activation screen. And then you would just simply come into Control Cloud and you would take that code and you would just input it into device activation. So when you click on activate device, yep. you just put that code right here, and then your player will set up into your network. So that's probably the easiest way to do it if you're just going to be doing 1 or 2 players at a time. But for those that are doing larger deployments where you may have 20 or 30 players or even more, or hundreds of players, we do have another way of doing it, which would be through device provisioning. So this is a really powerful way because, John, if you want to click on device provisioning tab, because it allows you as an integrator to kind of get ahead of the setup. So before the players even have even reached the location, you can get all the serial numbers, and you can actually take a template, or you can add them in here one at a time, or you can download the template and you just put the information into it. So you're going to add a new device, just put the serial number in, the device name and the device description, and you can just click on add device. So the device will drop into this device provisioning tab. If you're doing hundreds of them and you want to do it by template, you can simply download that template, put all the information in, and upload it back into Control Cloud, into this device provisioning tab. And then what happens when you do what I just said, which is you put a blank SD card into your player, you power it on for the first time. It's actually the first thing it's going to do when it defaults to DHCP and grabs an IP address, is it's going to go out and it's going to look at our device provisioning server, and it's going to see itself, and it will drop in. So you don't even have to do the activation screen. You don't have to go in and get that activation code. So this is a really great way for you to set these players up even prior to those players being on location, right? So the first time they plug them in, the players will already know where they belong. And once the players are into the device provisioning tab, you do have to create a setup file for them. So we can do that by clicking on the admin tab and then clicking on device setup. So again, because our players can do a lot of different things and that they can be part of different CMS partners or our own, you have to tell the player what kind of setup it's going to have. So you would create a setup. This is called a setup package, because one setup file can be applied to multiple players, or you can have different setup files. So we call it a setup package. So you would simply just name the setup package. You would give it a device name, your device description, and then down below, you'll want to change your time zone because it is going to default to Pacific time. So make sure you change your time zone. And then we're also going to tell the player how it's going to receive its content. So the options that you have are going to be standalone, which standalone means that I'm going to put my content directly onto a thumb drive or an SD card, and I'm going to walk over and I'm going to plug it into the player, which is not probably ideal, a little archaic, but super secure. Or we have local file networking. Local file networking is basically for BrightAuthor Connected. So BrightAuthor Connected is the free version, and local file networking would be all your players have to be on the same subnet as the PC that's hosting that software, okay? So we recommend that for 10 players or less. And then bsn.cloud would be the content cloud subscription. So if you're using our content cloud, you would simply select this one. Simple file networking is another option, and simple file networking is basically you're going to publish your content to a URL, and you're going to point all your players to that URL to pull the content in. So it's kind of like, I hate to say this, but it's kind of like a poor man's cloud. So all the players are going to have the same content because they're going to be pointed to the same URL, or you're going to have to create different URLs and point the players to the different ones. But that simple file networking is one way that you can do that. And then you're going to, or you can choose partner application. So partner application is the ones that we showed you in the PowerPoint. So you can actually select a partner application, and it will open up another box with all of our partners that are actually in Control Cloud. So this is not all of our BrightSign partners. This is just the CMS partners that are embedded in Control Cloud. So I can simply choose a partner. It'll apply the application URL to the player, and it will know I'm a 22 miles player or I'm an MVIX player. And then you would simply go to MVIX and activate your device. So it's a really powerful way for you to even use our partners and still use Control Cloud to do all of your setup. And then if you did want to choose a partner that's not embedded into Control Cloud, that last option would be for you, which is the custom application URL. So you can select this one, get that URL from the provider that you want to use, and just apply it right here. And this is also where you're going to either include network configuration. So if you wanted to do static IP addresses, or if you needed to do proxy or Wi-Fi, I would include that into my network configuration. And then over to the right, you also can choose BrightSign OS update. Hit that one. So you can create the OS update inside your setup file. So if you wanted to make sure your players are on the latest and greatest production release, which is 8.2.75, you can add that to your setup as well, or you can leave that out. It's up to you. And then once you go through all these tabs and you have it configured exactly how you want to have it configured, you can just save your setup file to your library. So you can have as many setup files as you'd like. They'll all just be populated here in your device setup library, right? So you can have, like I said, as many as you like. So if you have more, different customers, or however you want to, you have as many as you like. And then if you go back to the device provisioning tab by clicking on admin, and get into that. So then we can highlight all these players or just one player, and we can apply that new setup. So either we can have this setup already done and we can populate it in here when we first bring our devices in. And if we need to change a device or a setup at any time, so for instance, if you started with the free version of BrightAuthor Connected and now they want to go to cloud, you simply can come in here, create a new setup package for bsn.cloud, apply that setup package to the player, but just by highlighting it, click apply setup, and then there will be a drop down of your library will show up right here. So he only has one in there, but your whole library will show up in the drop down. You choose the setup you want and just click on apply setup. So it's really easy then to change these players and make it so if they chose a partner and they want to move on from that partner, if they want to start with the free version and move into cloud, it's very, very easy for you to change the setup files on these players and then re-provision them. So that's how easy setup is on the hardware. And then when you click on the network tab, or you can click on dashboard, doesn't matter, all your players in Control Cloud will show up right here, and then under the network tab or across the dashboard, you'll see that your players are online. You can click in that way as well. And then what this allows you to do is it allows you to get into the RDWS of the player so you can see what's going on. So normally we would have the local DWS where you could just log in if you're on the same network as your device, but this way you can do it remotely. So if you click on the settings wheel, it'll actually drop you into your player, and it will give you all the information that you need on this first info screen, right? So you've got your power source, whether or not it's PoE, you've got your BrightSign OS version, you've got your IP address, your MAC address, all that information, how long this player has been up, everything's on the info slide. And then on the second tab, we have the logs. So this is extremely important for technical support. And it's just a good idea if you ever need technical support from BrightSign to go ahead and download these logs and add them to your ticket, because we're going to ask you for them. But all your tech support logs are here that we're more than happy to read through if you're having an issue. And then on the control tab, we actually give you remote control for the player as well. So in the old days, you had to reboot a player, or factory reset it. You'd actually have to physically touch the player, but you don't have to do that anymore. So you can factory reset these players via the cloud. You can reboot the players. You can update the provisioning, like I mentioned. If you wanted to switch the setup files and needed to re-provision your device, you can do that through this control cloud. And then we also give you access to the SD card. So if you needed to wipe the contents on the SD card, you could do that from here. You can also see the storage information and the health of your SD card as well. So you can tell if you're running out of storage and when the card needs to be replaced. So that's a really great feature where, again, we want to deploy these and we don't want you to have to physically touch them after they're deployed. And then on the diagnostic screen, you can look at your network setup. So if you needed to view what that network configuration is, all that information is right here. And then we also have something called the network packet capture, which is basically just Wireshark. So you can see if you're having any kind of issues with the player connecting, you can actually click on this and it'll give you a PCAP file so you can tell if there's something on the network that's blocking it. So that's a really useful tool if you're having trouble getting the player to connect over the network. It could just be being blocked. And then on snapshots, this is, again, just click on new snapshot and it's going to tell you what's playing on a player at any given time. So this is John's player in Northern Virginia, and it's got a bakery on it. It looks like a menu board on it, and it will timestamp it and date it for you as well. So if you ever needed to check content, you could do that through the cloud also. And then on the video tab, so most these players are just going to be on automatic, so it'll automatically will detect what the resolution is, which they're going to mostly default to 1920 by 1080. But if you needed to come in here and change this mode, or like I mentioned with the EDID, read that EDID information or any of that's all going to be in this video tab. And then on the advanced is where you can update your operating system. So if you wanted to update the OS or the firmware, we call it OS, you can do that in here. So this is also really, really powerful because you can go to the production release of the software. But if you're using, for instance, a CMS partner, sometimes they want you to use a specific version of our OS. And so if that was the case, you could actually come in here and put in a custom URL because they're all located on our web page, and you can just apply that here. So you can actually go up and down the OS as you need to based on what your needs are. And then of course, all your logs and your registry dump and all of that stuff is right there. And so I do have a couple of questions about the integrated CMS, Vistar and BrightSign. So Vistar is something that we're working on right now to get them integrated. And we're kind of halfway through that. BrightSign, no, they're a competitor. And then they also want to know, John, if we can show any restaurant ordering demos. So we can probably do something like that when we talk about the content side, right?
Yeah, we can go into that. Do you want to do that now?
Yeah, so if there's no other question, that's basically Control Cloud in a nutshell. So if there's any other questions on the control portion of it, and if not, then we'll let John talk about the content part.
Okay, so the content cloud is something we mentioned in this earlier slide. That is our version of a CMS. And what we've got here available to us in this tab in Bright Author Connected is a content tab. And that means that I can upload and I can manage different media assets and make use of those in presentations that I build in Bright Author Connected. So let's take a look real quick at what that looks like. It's broken into two basic categories just to keep things simple. The first category is our media. We have the ability to upload videos, images, and organize them into structure, a folder structure based on projects, based on users who are shared into our network. So all of this is meant for your media assets that you're going to make use of. The second piece that we have here are called components. And these are unique to our CMS, and they give you the ability to work with your content in much more dynamic ways. So we've got playlists of various types. We've got a dynamic playlist, tagged playlists. We've got data feeds. We got the ability to drop in HTML sites and that sort of thing. So all of these components are things that you can drag and drop, and you can link into your presentations, and it gives you a number of different, functional, unique functions, for each of these components. But the other thing that it gives you is the ability to manage and work with your presentations with different groups of users that have different responsibilities. So a good example of this is if you author a bunch of content into a presentation and now you need to go and change that content, one of the more common and straightforward approaches is just simply edit your presentation and change that content. But instead of having to do that and actually, risking, taking down a presentation that's running on a screen, in public somewhere, what you can do is actually set up a role for someone to go and manage the content through one of these dynamic components, and just simply update the media in these components rather than directly in your presentation. So it's a good way of kind of decoupling some of the management and the creation of these presentations. So just going through, we can create, for example, a new dynamic playlist. Let's call this an image playlist, and we can build this playlist using some of the assets that we've got. So I've got a few videos here in my content library. I can drag these in and I can save this playlist. So this has nothing to do at this point with any sort of presentation that's going to a player. This is just simply a component that's available to me in this library. And I can make use of this component in any presentation, not just one. I can put it on a number of different presentations of different content on different players in different locations, but I can still have them centrally reference this component. So this is a great example of how you can make use of something really, really dynamic. The other thing that is kind of my favorite in all of this is the HTML site and the Node.js applications. When you start getting into more sophisticated and complicated presentation integrations, you might want to consider, authoring your content using HTML, at least in some component. If it's entirely in HTML, that's great. Maybe you just need a certain piece of it. Good, example of this is a weather widget, for example. If you just needed a zone of content in your presentation that was pulling in live data from a weather server, you could create that HTML component. You could drop it into your as a component and make it available to your presentation. And you can literally drag and drop that into a presentation and have that running. So it's a great way to add a ton of flexibility and customization. So there's a lot of these components in here that I think are worth exploring. And as you can see, I've got a number of different media items in here in my content library. And really, what it comes down to is I can create a new presentation. We'll call this a demo. I'm going to pick my player as XD1034. My connector type, resolution, all of this is set as default, landscape 60p. And what I'm looking at here is a canvas, and I can start building zones of content. And this represents what I'm going to see on screen when I actually publish this to a player. So I've got a single zone of content here, and I have a couple of different ways to work with my content. Like I said before, I can drag and drop media assets from my library, and I can build a playlist right here on the spot if I wanted to. If I wanted to instead make use of something a little bit more dynamic, then I can go and look at my components. I can grab that dynamic playlist that I built earlier, and I can drop this into the zone. So, what this means is I can build this presentation, I can use this component, publish it to a player, and then separately, I can go and edit that playlist on its own. I can remove videos, add videos, change the order, that sort of thing. And it just gives me a really great way of updating this kind of content. So, this is a very, very, quick and simple kind of example of how you can use, our CMS in a presentation. And of course, once you're here, all of the normal presentation, concepts apply. Driving events off of these widgets and off of these states, and just building interaction and working with, all of your different zones of content. And it's all seamlessly done with our Content Cloud. So any questions on that? I didn't want to go too deep, too far in.
I don't see any questions pertaining to Content Cloud. We do have an inventory question, but I'll address that at the end.
Okay. All right. So anything else you think we should cover on here with the time we've got left?
I don't think so.
Looks like Chase wants a hardware demo.
That's a demo unit to evaluate. So let's talk about inventory then. And if you're done with the content portion, John.
Okay.
Or if anybody else has anything else you'd like to see within BrightAuthor or Content Cloud, go ahead and post it and I'll have him do it. So actually they'd like to see some more application examples.
More application examples. Okay.
So like, so it's kind of like what we talked about before with the different verticals, like where, do you have anything like that that's already done?
Let's look at a corporate comms board. How about that one?
Okay.
I appreciate you guys reacting to these questions because, I really appreciate it. Let's just try to go in there and, they're just wanting to see examples or they're excited about it. So thank you. And Chase, as far as hardware demos, hit me up afterwards. Let me know what Snap Store you're with, and we'll address that as well. Thanks, guys. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I've actually switched networks. I don't know if you noticed that. So in the upper right corner, I'm now on demo 1. I was on demo 3. This is another concept that we work with here is this concept of networks. Under your single account sign-in, you can have as many networks as you want, and those networks may or may not have Content Cloud as a paid option. But so what I've done is I've switched back to an older network that has a bunch of different demo presentations in it. And I want to show something that's really interesting from a multi-zone, more complex presentation build out. This particular presentation is a corporate comms board that really illustrates how you could put together a lot of different zones of content into a single presentation, and you can define the type of content that goes into those zones, and kind of seamlessly put together a really neat presentation. So what we've got here is a huge list of different zones that are arranged. We've got a background image zone. I've got a zone set up here specifically for a logo. Got a weather widget zone. We've got, a zone set up for analytics. Let's say you wanted to tie into, um, some sort of a Tableau or a data feed of some kind. We could do a news ticker, video, that sort of thing. And then we can add these buttons of interaction, that sort of content into this presentation. And so each of these zones individually can be clicked on. You can go into them. So I'm going to click in, menu 4 here. And as you can see, we've got a single image. It's a button, and this is once we actually come in here and set this to interactive, then I can say that for this specific image, this is a button that's sitting in the bottom right corner of this entire presentation. If I click on this, then I want it to do something. So from this image, I can actually pick one of these events at the top. I can, connect it over here, and then I can actually drive, functionality or some kind of a process using that touch. So I can set a touch region if I wanted to, which in this case will be, the full zone of this image, and then I can say what I want to have happen. And a lot of times this is a concept where you're navigating to, let's say, another page. Maybe you want to send a command. Maybe you want to send a UDP command to something else, in your integration. So all of these things are available here. You can do conditional targeting, and you can do, let's do a command. Let's, send a uh, a UDP message, once this button is pressed. So we'll send this UDP command at the touch. So this is a pretty common example of what we talk about with these states and events. This is really the architecture of how these presentations are built, is that you're working with your media assets, you're working with these states. This is considered a state, in this support button here, and then you're driving events and logic off of those. There's a ton of different events across the top panel here that you can see, everything from touch to, timeouts to, when a media is stopped, or it's done playing. We've got button panels, GPIO pins, IR remote controls, that sort of thing. All of these events can be tied and linked to other states and other functionality in the presentation. So this really is kind of the core underlying, building block for working with our players in Bright Arthur Connected.
So the thing about Bright Author Connected, and hopefully one thing that you've kind of taken away from some of the things that you're seeing on this screen, is that you really there's the sky is the limit. These players will do anything you can possibly think of, because it's all based on HTML. And so if you can plug anything in the GPIO or a USB or even a USB hub, different ways to automate and trigger content. We can do all of that kind of stuff within BrightSign. So it's very difficult to try to capture what these players are capable of, because they're really capable of anything. And what we're hoping that you can see is that you can actually create some really unique and engaging ways to be dynamic with your customers as they come into your stores, or create different dynamic applications for them at their own facilities. And because that's really what signage is about, right? You want people to take action and do something, and you want it to be unique, and you want it to be something that's engaging. And BrightSign, we can do all of that. You're really only limited by your own creativity. So I do have a couple more questions I want to get to before the end. And I know that you wanted to see some more examples, and we're kind of running out of time. So what I will do, Gary, is I will send you a link to our video. So we actually have a showroom in Los Gatos, California, where we have stations set up that has a lot of different applications, like really cool things that we do with our product, like a showcase. And that showcase or that showroom is available for us to demo for you and your customers. If you would like us to, you can schedule that with us. But I can also send you a link to a video that will show you one of our product managers that will actually walk through each one of those those showcases and show you those different types of applications that we have running in that showroom. It's about a 20-minute video to get through all of them because there's a lot of different applications, but I'll send that link that can go over with the deck. So if anybody would like to take a look at that showroom, you can. And if you'd like to see it live, just let me know and we can schedule that as well.
Great, Misty. Thank you very much.
So I had two questions, one about inventory, and I really wanted to answer this one live because we are like every other electronics company in the universe that is having a component shortage, right? Having a hard time sourcing our components, and not even just that, but cardboard to package the components, like our players. It's just really been a struggle. So our inventory situation is fluid, and it's ever changing. So the question was specifically about our lowest end player, which is the LS424. And yes, we do actually have stock of that right now. But we continue to bring in products as much as we possibly can, and we continue to buy, on the spot components as much as we possibly can. But there are certain models that we're focusing on rather than some of the others, just because of the use cases and, like I said, what is the most popular products that we sell. So the XT1144 is one that we are trying to use those components to continue to build. So that's going to be your best bet. But we do have LS424s in stock right now. So you can talk to AllNet about getting those. And then we also had a question about tech support. This is another one I wanted to answer live. So tech support we do offer for free, but it's an emailed ticketing system. So you would go in, I'll click on our support tab on our website. You would fill out a form, basically what is the players that you're running, what is the OS, and what the issue is that you're having. And you would go into an email ticketing system. You'll get a support ticket number, and then support will reach back out to you via email. We do have the ability to do priority callbacks, and we sell those. So there's support priority callbacks, and that will cover the entire issue, not just a call, but they're $99 retail price. And you can order as many as you'd like. They just expire in a year if you don't use them. But so that is basically, if you redeem one of those, then support and you will actually determine a time that they'll get on a Zoom call and go through the issue with you. And then that support call will actually cover it until the issue is resolved. So if it takes 4 calls or 5 calls, it'll continue to cover that until it's resolved. As far as the response time for the tech support email, it's usually within a few hours that you would get an email back, but obviously that depends on the support load for the day. So I would say, within a few hours. Sometimes it can take a little bit longer, but usually it's always the same day. So with that, do we have any other questions? Type fast.
Yeah, no, great presentation, you guys. I totally feel the support, and thank you for addressing some of the inventory issues. Like I said in the beginning, we're all used to that, but I think it was John who had that job coming up with AllNet. John, get with me too, and Rashawn's on this call too, and not to pull you in, Rashawn, but if you would like to add anything in terms of Snap One e-com or any product that you might have, availability and so forth. I'm not sure if John has a direct account with Snap One, but regardless, we're here for you. Whether it's Volutone, we'll find the product and let's support your job any way we can. But Misty, thank you so much. Any last words? I mean, I think our questions were definitely competent. There's guys doing jobs out there. I love that we were able to. You're welcome, John. At least address this community here right before the holiday weekend. But great job. Thank you for that link. I'll definitely cook up definitely a competent email for Friday morning that kind of just recaps this whole discussion today. And you know what, Misty, John, can I have you back in 4 hours?
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Let's do the PM version, okay? The tailgate.
Is that the happy hour version? Because that's
exactly.
time.
That's what we do. It'll be a little. Not that this one wasn't loose. It's not coffee, but whatever you want to bring to the party at our PM session. But no, anybody that was on this call, you can invite your team back, and let's do this again. It can be we can address a couple of different issues, but we will have the same deck, etc. So really want to thank you guys. Awesome presentation. We will continue this discussion. I think that you definitely saw guys lining their jobs up and wanting to integrate BrightSign with this. Thank you very much.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for putting it together.
Yeah, my pleasure. And again, thanks for everything. And Misty, great job on the Snap One inclusion. It's still kind of fresh. But you're a marketing person, you know how important it is, and we're all supporting this. But from all of us at the Snap One partner stores, and that's AllNet, that's MRI, that's Custom Plus, and that's Volutone. We are all together, and we bring the best of the best every Wednesday to the hot seat. We try to stump you, but more importantly, you're seeing a definite view of all the products that we do support and integrate every single day. So we're certainly proud to have you guys on board as well. Rashawn, thank you. Anything you'd like to add? I think you might have unmuted, don't know, but Rashawn's my partner at Snap One as well. But if not.
Oh yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
I was actually just typing to John right now, just saying that we'll circle back on the AllNet stock position.
Okay.
I know that was a great presentation. Thanks for walking everybody through that. In all full transparency, this is my first webinar as well, as I'm kind of new to the product development org, so I'm pretty stoked to be on this side of things, helping out.
Oh, so. Give him a hand, ladies and gentlemen. Awesome job with that already.
Cool.
All right. Well, thanks everyone.
All right, guys. Yeah, like I said, we'll be back in 4 hours. Look for your inbox on Friday morning for a full recap. And tomorrow at all of the Snap One stores, it is barbecue time. We're going to celebrate a little bit and give out some swag. You guys, thank you so much. We know you guys are busy. Continue to be safe out there. Got the best of the best every single Wednesday here on our weekly webinar series. Misty, John, Rashawn, thank you guys so much. See you in a few hours.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.